The stage is set. A Hollywood star's reckoning. Los Angeles, June 2025. The sun dipped below the Hollywood Hills, casting a golden glow over the sprawling city of dreams, where ambition and opinion collided like tectonic plates. In a sleek, modern studio tucked away in a nondescript building off Sunset Boulevard, Jason Bateman adjusted his headphones, his trademark dry smile flickering as he leaned into the microphone. Across from him, Nicole Wallace, the seasoned MSNBC host, exuded a calm intensity, her eyes sharp with the anticipation of a conversation that promised to make waves. The red light blinked on, signaling the start of the premiere episode of her new podcast, The Best People. The air was thick with the weight of what was to come. Jason Bateman, the everyman actor known for his roles in Arrested Development and Ozark, wasn't here to talk about his latest project or the intricacies of directing a Netflix thriller. No, today was different. The topic was inevitable. Donald Trump, the man who had once again seized the presidency in 2024, defying the odds and the expectations of the coastal elites. Bateman, usually reserved about politics, felt a fire in his gut. He'd spent months watching the news, scrolling through X, and wrestling with the disbelief that 80 million Americans had voted for Trump, again. Today, he was ready to speak. Nicole leaned forward, her voice warm but probing. Jason, you've been in this industry for decades, navigating the chaos of Hollywood. But let's talk about the chaos outside these walls. Trump's back in the White House. What's going through your mind? Bateman's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of his Marty Byrde intensity from Ozark surfacing. I'm addicted to it, Nicole, he said, his voice steady but laced with frustration. I can't stop watching the Trump show. The things he says, the things he does, it's like a car crash you can't look away from. But what really gets me is the 80 million people who'd vote for him again tomorrow. It's a social phenomenon, a political phenomenon, that I just can't wrap my head around. The words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Nicole nodded, sensing the passion behind his restraint. You're not alone in that fascination, she said. But what's the disconnect for you? Why do you think those voters keep going back to him? Bateman leaned back, running a hand through his hair. It's not just about him. It's about them. They're choosing to stay insulated from the facts, from common sense. You have to make a real effort to avoid the truth these days. It's everywhere, except maybe on Fox or Breitbart. His words were sharp, cutting through the polite veneer of celebrity discourse. He wasn't just criticizing Trump, he was calling out his supporters, a move that felt like touching the third rail of Hollywood politics. The studio fell silent for a moment, the weight of his statement sinking in. The backlash begins. New York City. Later that evening. By the time the podcast episode dropped on June 5, 2025, the internet was already ablaze. Clips of Bateman's remarks circulated on X, amplified by accounts like Jot_o, who posted, Hollywood star Jason Bateman absolutely destroyed Donald Trump today on Nicole Wallace's show, where he railed against the president and said what we've all been thinking. The post racked up thousands of likes and retweets, with liberals cheering Bateman's candor and conservatives sharpening their knives. In a cramped apartment in Queens, Sarah Thompson, a 30-year-old graphic designer and Trump supporter, scrolled through X on her phone, her jaw tightening as she watched the clip. She'd always liked Bateman, his deadpan humor in Arrested Development had gotten her through tough times. But now? Who does he think he is? She muttered, typing a furious reply. Jason Bateman says we need a talking to. Maybe he needs to talk to his sister, Justine, who gets it. Hollywood elitist. Her post joined a chorus of others, some calling for a boycott of Bateman's films, others mocking his insulated comment as hypocritical. Across the country, in a sunlit cafe in Austin, Texas, Justine Bateman sat with her laptop open, sipping an iced coffee. She'd been out of the Hollywood spotlight for years, focusing on her filmmaking and writing, but her recent comments on X about the end of the woke era had thrust her back into the public eye. When she saw her brother's name trending, she clicked on the podcast clip, her expression unreadable. Justine had publicly celebrated Trump's 2024 victory, not because she was a die-hard MAGA supporter, but because she saw it as a rejection of the stifling political correctness that had gripped Hollywood. Jason, she whispered to herself, shaking her head. She knew her brother wasn't malicious, but his words stung. They weren't just about Trump. They were about people like her, people who didn't fit neatly into the coastal narrative. She typed a private message to him, "Hey, saw the podcast. We need to talk. Call me." The Fox News Counterattack Fox News Studio, July 1, 2025. The set of The Five was a pressure cooker of opinions, and tonight, Jason Bateman was the main course. Greg Gutfeld, the show's resident provocateur, leaned into his microphone, a smirk playing on his lips. So, Jason Bateman thinks Trump voters need a talking to. Maybe he should talk to his sister, Justine, who's got more common sense in her pinky than he's got in his whole Hollywood bubble. The audience roared with laughter, and the panelists piled on. Kennedy, the former MTV VJ, didn't hold back. "Jason, you're an actor, okay? Thank you so much, dear. Now go ahead and shut your pretty mouth until someone writes some words for you." Dana Perino, ever the measured voice, added, "He calls us insulated. Who was more insulated than Joe Biden last year? Jason's the one living in a bubble." The segment was a masterclass in Fox News outrage, perfectly timed to capitalize on the growing backlash against Bateman. Social media exploded, with hashtags like Boycott Bateman and Hollywood Hypocrite trending. One user, my name 698688909, posted, "Bateman is really singing for his supper, isn't he?" alongside a link to a Gateway Pundit article that accused him of alienating his fanbase while claiming to have tons of Republican friends. Back in Los Angeles, Bateman watched the Fox News clip on his phone, his jaw clenched. He'd expected some pushback, but this was a tsunami. His agent, Rachel, called him in a panic. "Jason, what were you thinking? You can't just call 80 million people ignorant and expect it to blow over. We're getting calls from studios, people are nervous." "I didn't call them ignorant," Jason snapped, pacing his living room. "I said they're insulated from the facts. There's a difference." Rachel sighed. "Not to them, there isn't. And your sister's out there on X, basically siding with them. This is a PR nightmare." A family divide. Bateman residence, Los Angeles, July 2, 2025. The next morning, Jason sat at his kitchen counter, a half-empty coffee mug in hand, staring at his phone. Justine's message from the night before still glowed on the screen. He hadn't called her yet. What was there to say? They'd always been close, despite their differences, but this felt like a chasm. He remembered their childhood in Hollywood, Justine, the older sister, always the rebel, while he played the affable, go-along-to-get-along guy. Now, those roles seemed reversed. That he dialed her number, and she picked up on the second ring. "Hey, stranger," she said, her voice warm but guarded. "Hey," Jason replied, forcing a smile into his tone. "So, I guess you heard the podcast." Justine laughed softly. "Oh, I heard it. And so did half the country, apparently. What's going on with you, Jason? You're not usually the one to wade into the political swamp." He sighed, running a hand over his face. "I don't know, Justine. I'm just frustrated. I look at what's happening, and I can't understand how so many people don't see it. The lies, the chaos, it's all right there, and they're still voting for him. And you think calling them out on a podcast is going to change their minds?" Justine's tone was gentle but pointed. "You're preaching to the choir with Nicole Wallace's audience. All you're doing is making people like me, people who might not even love Trump but get why he resonates, feel attacked." Jason bristled. "I wasn't attacking you. I said I respect the grievances, that I get why people are fed up. But come on, Justine, you can't tell me you buy into this whole deep state conspiracy nonsense." There was a pause, and when Justine spoke again, her voice was quieter. "I don't buy into anything, Jason. I'm not on a team. I just see a lot of people. Regular people, not Hollywood elites, who feel like they've been ignored for years. And when you say they're insulated from the facts, you're dismissing their reality. That's what stings. The conversation stretched on, neither sibling fully bridging the gap. Jason hung up feeling more conflicted than ever. He wasn't wrong, was he? But Justine's words lingered, gnawing at the edges of his certainty. The Hollywood bubble. Beverly Hills, July 3, 2025. The fallout continued to ripple through Hollywood. At a swanky rooftop party in Beverly Hills, attended by the usual mix of actors, producers, and influencers, Bateman's comments were the talk of the night. Some toasted his bravery, others whispered about the risk to his career. Sarah Jessica Parker, one of Nicole Wallace's upcoming podcast guests, pulled Jason aside. "You stirred the pot, my friend," she said with a wry smile. "But you know what? Sometimes it needs stirring." Not everyone agreed. A prominent producer, known for his conservative leanings, cornered Jason by the bar. "You're a talented guy, Jason, but you're playing with fire. You think those Trump voters don't watch your shows? You're alienating half your audience." Jason forced a laugh. "I've got tons of Republican friends, man. They know where I stand. We still grab beers and talk basketball." The producer raised an eyebrow. "Sure, but your Republican friends aren't the ones trending boycott Bateman on X right now." As the night wore on, Jason felt the weight of the divide. Hollywood was his home, but it was also a bubble, just as Justine had said. He thought about the writers' rooms he'd been in, struggling to keep up with the ever-evolving Trump saga. He'd backed away from 2 projects because the storylines felt too raw, too real. Maybe he was the one insulated, too comfortable in his MSNBC watching, New York Times reading world. The redemption arc. New York City, July 10, 2025. A week later, Jason agreed to a follow-up interview on Nicole Wallace's podcast, hoping to clarify his remarks. The backlash had taken a toll. His latest Netflix project, Black Rabbit, was facing online review bombing, and his team was fielding angry emails from fans. He needed to set the record straight. This time, the studio felt less like a safe haven and more like a battleground. Nicole, ever the professional, eased him into the conversation. "Jason, you caused quite a stir last time. Want to unpack what you meant by insulated?" Jason took a deep breath. "Look, I stand by what I said about the truth being out there. But I think I came off harsher than I meant to. I'm not saying Trump voters are stupid or bad people. I'm saying we're all stuck in our corners, me included. I'm trying to understand why so many people feel the way they do, and I didn't do a great job of showing that." He went on, his voice softer. "I talked to my sister, Justine, and she reminded me that we're all neighbors, like I said last time. We've got to stop talking past each other. I love this country, and I know they do too. Maybe I need to listen more, not just lecture." The long road. Ahead. Los Angeles, August 2025. Months later, Jason sat in his home office, scrolling through X. The boycott Bateman hashtag had faded, replaced by newer controversies, but the experience had left its mark. He'd started reading more diverse sources, Breitbart, The Wall Street Journal, even posts from X-users outside his usual circle. He wasn't changing his mind about Trump, but he was starting to see the bigger picture, a country fractured, not just by politics, but by distrust. Justine visited him that weekend, and over a bottle of wine, they talked, not about politics, but about their childhood, their dreams, their shared love of storytelling. "You know," Justine said, swirling her glass, "you didn't have to agree with me. You just had to hear me." Jason nodded, a small smile breaking through. "I'm trying, sis. I'm trying." The Trump show would go on, and so would Hollywood's endless dance with politics. But for Jason Bateman, the lesson wasn't about picking a side. It was about learning to listen, even when the truth felt like a moving target.